An officer, blinded by power, humiliated a defenseless market vendor in broad daylight. He had no idea that behind that simple, hard-working woman was the mother of one of the army's most feared captains. What happened next shocked everyone. The sun, which had previously scorched the market with its merciless heat, now seemed to silently witness the trail of desolation left behind. Mrs. Clara's merchandise lay scattered across the ground amidst shards of glass, a silent testament to the officer's excessive fury. Passers-by, initially stunned, began to disperse, carrying with them not only the shock of the incident, but also the indignation that simmered beneath the surface. Whispers spread like a virus, traversing the city's narrow streets and bustling alleys, each adding a new layer of outrage to the story of a simple woman's humiliation. Far away, in the austere silence of her office at headquarters, Captain Sophia reviewed reports with the cold precision of a surgeon. Her desk was immaculate, every document aligned, every pen in its place. The pale afternoon light filtered through the window, illuminating the insignia on her uniform and the serious expression that rarely wavered. Sophia was a force of nature, a strategic mind, and a body trained for discipline. Feared by her enemies and respected by her subordinates, her reputation for integrity and justice was unshakable. She was the embodiment of the law, but a law that, to her, should serve to protect the vulnerable, not to oppress. A jarring ring broke the concentrated silence. The phone, an old secure line model, vibrated with an urgency Sophia rarely heard. She answered, her voice calm and controlled. "Captain Sophia, at your service." On the other end of the line, a choked and almost unrecognizable voice of a longtime neighbor, Mrs. Maria, struggled to articulate the words. At first, Sophia listened with her usual patience. But as the fragments of the story fell into place, an officer, the market, the humiliation, her mother, the line on her forehead deepened. He threw everything on the ground, Captain. Your mother. She was so defenseless. And he threatened her." Mrs. Maria's voice broke into a sob, and the sound seemed to pierce Sophia's armor of calm. The air in the office seemed to thin. Sophia's heart, an engine of steel and discipline, pulsed with a different intensity, a rhythm of fury that threatened to break its bonds. The image of her mother, Mrs. Clara, a woman with hands calloused by honest work, yet with unshakable dignity, being mistreated and publicly humiliated, ignited something deep within her. It was not just a daughter's rage, but an officer's revolt at seeing justice trampled. Her eyes, previously focused on reports, now gleamed with icy determination. The hand holding the phone clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Mrs. Maria," she said, her voice now a dangerous whisper that barely contained the brewing storm. "Do you remember the patrol car number? The officer's name? Any detail?" Mrs. Maria, startled by the captain's change in tone, managed to gather the few details she remembered between sobs. Sophia jotted down every word, every fragment of information, with firm, precise handwriting. When Mrs. Maria finished, the captain thanked her and replaced the receiver with a dry, final click. She stood, her movements fluid and intentional. The setting sun cast long shadows across the office, but the darkness forming in Sophia's eyes was deeper. Her mother, her rock, her inspiration, had been touched, and the one who did it, in his blind arrogance, had just awakened the fury of an army captain. The system he thought protected him was about to feel the weight of its own corruption. Sophia took a deep breath, and the air she exhaled carried the silent promise of relentless vengeance. The hunt had begun. Sophia didn't waste a second. The dry click of the phone being replaced on the hook still vibrated in the office air, but the captain was already in motion. Her hand reached for the keyboard of her secure terminal, agile fingers typing complex commands. It wasn't just anger that propelled her, but a cold, calculated determination that had long defined her. The information Mrs. Maria had provided, however fragmented, was the starting point of an investigation that promised to be relentless. The soft click of the keys filled the office silence as Sophia navigated restricted databases. The bluish light of the screen projected onto her face, illuminating the rigid line of her jaw. She entered the details Mrs. Maria had whispered: the patrol car number, the uniform description, the market area. Within minutes, the system began cross-referencing information. A low hum emanated from the server, an echo of the vast data network Sophia was accessing. The screen flickered, revealing the profile of Officer Marcelo Vargas, a common name, an unremarkable face, but the attached history told a more complex story. Multiple complaints of inappropriate conduct, all filed without consequence. Reports of excessive force, followed by inexplicable acquittals. A subtle web of irregularities that, to a less trained eye, would go unnoticed. But Sophia, with her acuity and knowledge of the system's intricacies, saw the cracks. There was protection, an invisible yet palpable shield. Her eyes narrowed, the indignation boiling in her veins now tempered by strategic clarity. It wasn't just a corrupt officer, it was a symptom, a parasite feeding on a larger, sick body. Her mother's humiliation was not an isolated incident, but a manifestation of systemic abuse. Sophia dialed another number, this time an internal line. The phone rang twice before being answered. "Captain Elias, at your service." The voice on the other end was firm and professional. Elias was her right-hand man, a man of unwavering trust, known for his discretion and loyalty. "Elias, it's me." Sophia's voice was low, but imbued with an urgency Elias rarely heard. "I need you to come to my office, now. And I need immediate access to all incident reports involving Officer Marcelo Vargas of the City Patrol from the last 2 years. No exceptions. And please, do this discreetly. No one else needs to know, for now." A brief silence followed on the other end of the line. Elias, a man who understood the weight of unspoken words, grasped the gravity of the situation. "Understood, Captain. I'll be there in 5 minutes. The reports will be on your terminal before then." The sound of a connection being terminated cut through the air. Sophia leaned back in her chair, her mind already charting the next steps. The information about Vargas was just the tip of the iceberg. She needed to map the protection network, identify the weakest and strongest links. Dismantling the system would require more than a simple complaint. It would demand a meticulous, surgical operation. The captain knew she was about to start a war, not just for her mother, but for all those who had been silenced and trampled by the arrogance of power. The silent promise of vengeance had transformed into a plan, and the plan had just gained its first ally. A discreet knock on the door announced Elias's arrival. Captain Sophia, who had already opened the first digital files on the terminal, gestured for him to enter. Elias, with his always impeccable posture, carried a thin folder and a lit tablet, both exuding the urgency Sophia had conveyed. His eyes, sweeping the office, landed on the captain's serious face, catching the depth of the brewing storm. "The reports, Captain," Elias said, his voice low and controlled as he placed the items on the desk. "As requested, all incidents involving Officer Marcelo Vargas over the past 2 years, and a preliminary pattern analysis." Sophia nodded, her fingers already gliding across the screen of the tablet Elias had handed her. The bluish light illuminated profiles of complaints and descriptions of verbal and physical assaults, all filed with the same conclusion: without merit or insufficient evidence. A low hum emanated from the device, mixing with the rustle of pages as Sophia opened the physical folder. "He's not just an out-of-control officer, Elias," Sophia murmured, more to herself than to him. As her eyes scanned the lines of text, "He's a symptom, a piece in a larger scheme. Elias, standing beside her, leaned slightly, following the captain's reasoning. I agree, Captain. I noticed the consistency in the dismissal decisions. There's a signature. The same names appear repeatedly in the final opinions. A certain Inspector Ramos from Internal Affairs and a Sergeant Mendez, who appears to be Vargas's direct supervisor. The mention of the names clicked in Sofia's mind. Inspector Ramos. She had heard that name in other contexts before, always associated with cases that mysteriously disappeared or were suppressed. A tremor of rage ran through her body, but she suppressed it with years of disciplined training. Ramos, Mendez, Sofia repeated, her voice icy. So it's not just a matter of one corrupt officer, it's a protection network. They're covering for each other, using the uniform as a shield for impunity. Elias's gaze mirrored Sofia's determination. Exactly, Captain. Vargas's record is a manual on how to abuse power and get away with it. He knows he has cover. That's why he acts with such arrogance. Sofia lightly slapped her hand on the stack of reports. The dry sound echoed in the office silence. We're not just taking down Vargas, Elias. We're dismantling the entire structure that protects him, starting with Ramos and Mendez and anyone else involved. Elias nodded, his face serious. What's the strategy, Captain? A formal complaint can easily be shelved, like so many other cases. We need irrefutable evidence, something that cannot be ignored or suppressed, Sofia replied, her eyes gleaming with dangerous intensity. I want you to start monitoring the movements of Vargas, Ramos, and Mendez discreetly. I want to know who they meet, where, and how often. Use our intelligence contacts, but with utmost caution. No one can know we're investigating yet. Understood. Captain? Elias replied, already processing the instructions. I can activate some field agents we trust. They have experience in discreet surveillance operations. Good. And in the meantime, I'll delve deeper into the financial and communication records of these individuals, Sofia continued, her mind already charting the next steps. If there's a corruption scheme, there's a money trail, and there are communications that link them. We need concrete evidence, not just assumptions. She stood, her movements fluid and intentional, walking to the window and observing the darkness that swallowed the city outside. The streetlights began to dot the landscape, but the darkness within the system she intended to expose was far deeper. This won't be a quick battle, Elias, Sofia said, her voice firm and laden with a promise, but I guarantee it will be a battle they'll never forget. My mother was humiliated, and that, Elias, is something I do not forgive. Captain Elias felt a shiver. He knew Captain Sofia. When she spoke with that intensity, it meant the line had been crossed and the consequences would be severe. The hunt had begun, and the prey, blind in its arrogance, still had no idea of the relentless force it had awakened. The night promised to be long. Night swallowed the city, but inside Captain Sofia's office, the darkness was a canvas for the monitor's cold light. The sound of the door closing softly after Elias's departure marked the beginning of a new phase of the operation. Sofia didn't waste a second. Her fingers returned to the keyboard, acting with a precision that only years of military training could hone. The server's low hum, once mere background noise, now seemed a silent companion in her relentless pursuit. Financial records, communications. Sofia murmured into the empty room, her voice a harsh whisper that mingled with the rhythmic click of keys. She had promised Elias irrefutable evidence, and she knew that the fingerprints of a corruption scheme always manifested in numbers and words. The captain delved into the depths of the system's encrypted databases. Her initial focus was Officer Marcelo Vargas. She searched for any unusual transactions, any spending spikes that didn't align with his official salary. Soon, the first results began to pop up on the screen. Small recurring deposits from anonymous accounts, luxury purchases far exceeding his financial capacity, and, more intriguingly, transfers to a shell company registered in the name of a distant relative. The company name, Urban Security Limited, sounded like a cruel joke. The sound of a mouse click echoed in the silence as Sophia opened the company's records. The web began to form. Urban Security Limited had consulting contracts with various commercial establishments in the market area where her mother worked. More than that, payments were made irregularly, often coinciding with periods of intensive inspections by the city patrol. A pattern emerged clear as day: protection. Merchants paid not to be bothered. Those who didn't pay, like Mrs. Clara, suffered the consequences. Sophia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Her mother's humiliation was not an isolated act by an out-of-control officer, but a demonstration of force, a warning to those who resisted the scheme. The anger she felt now had a more defined, more concrete target. Her eyes moved to the names Elias had mentioned, Inspector Ramos and Sergeant Mendez. She cross-referenced their financial and communication data with that of Urban Security Limited. What she found was even more alarming. Ramos and Mendez weren't just covering for Vargas. They were an integral part of the network. Inspector Ramos, who signed off on the dismissal opinions for complaints, received dividends from the shell company. Sergeant Mendez, Vargas's direct supervisor, had a pattern of frequent communications with the owners of establishments that paid for consulting. A low whistle escaped Sophia's lips. The scope of the scheme was larger than she imagined. It wasn't just a corrupt officer, but a branch that extended through various levels of the hierarchy, using the structure to extort and intimidate. The system that should protect the population was, in fact, feeding on it. The captain pressed her lips together. The information she held was explosive. It not only linked Vargas to acts of corruption, but also exposed the complicity of his superiors, Ramos and Mendez, and the existence of a shell company used to launder money. It was the kind of evidence that couldn't be easily shelved. As the monitor's bluish light reflected in her eyes, Sophia began compiling the data. She created a secure file, meticulously organizing each transaction, each communication, each archived report. The firm click of her mouse confirmed each item added. She needed a cohesive narrative, a story of corruption that would be impossible to refute. The phone on her desk emitted a discreet beep, indicating an encrypted message. It was from Elias. Captain, the team is in the field. First report, Vargas just left a meeting with a local businessman, owner of a chain of convenience stores, known for having license issues. The meeting was at a discreet restaurant outside his patrol area. Ramos and Mendez were not present, but the businessman's name appears in the Urban Security Limited records. A cold smile appeared on Sophia's lips. Excellent. Elias, she murmured, though he couldn't hear her. The piece fit. Elias's surveillance complemented her digital findings. The evidence was accumulating, forming a mountain that would soon collapse on them. Captain Sophia leaned back in her chair, the soft creak of the leather filling the air. The night was deep, but the clarity in her mind was absolute. The plan was taking shape. She would not only dismantle the scheme, she would expose it in its entirety, ensuring that justice finally prevailed. The fury that propelled her was now tempered by strategy. The game had begun, and Sophia was playing to win. The monitor's light still bathed her face, but the screen now displayed a meticulously organized document. Each click of the mouse was a hammer striking the anvil of justice, forging the irrefutable evidence she had promised. The secure file, which she internally called Operation Fair Market, was a detailed compendium. It contained the bank statements of Vargas, Ramos and Mendez, with suspicious transactions marked in red. There were call and message logs, showing the frequency and duration of communications between them and the businessmen benefiting from Urban Security Limited. Satellite images and location data tracked the movements of those involved, confirming meetings at strategic times and locations. The server's low hum echoed in the silence, a constant reminder of the vast information network Sophia was weaving. She had created charts illustrating the hierarchy of corruption, showing how money flowed from the shell company into the officers' pockets and how inspection orders were given to extort merchants. It was a clear map of impunity, drawn with a surgeon's precision. A new discreet beep resonated from the phone. Elias. Captain, another report. The convenience store owner, Mr. Almeida, just made a considerable transfer to an offshore account. The account is linked to an intermediary we've already identified in other money laundering operations. And guess what? This intermediary has ties to Inspector Ramos. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. The web was even more complex than she imagined, extending beyond the country's borders. The creak of the chair accompanied her movement as she leaned in, her eyes fixed on the screen. Excellent, Elias. Continue monitoring that account. I want to know every movement of money, and see if you can track the ultimate beneficiary of that transfer. Understood, Captain. The team is working on it. We have a field agent who managed to get an environmental listening device in Mr. Almeida's office. We might pick up something relevant soon. The sound of Elias's voice, low and controlled, brought a sense of urgency. Sophia knew every second counted. With each new piece of evidence, the risk of being discovered increased. But her determination was unshakable. Perfect, Elias. Maintain maximum discretion. No one can suspect we're this close. Sophia ended the call, the soft click of the device marking the end of communication. She knew that a dossier, however complete, could easily be lost or discredited if delivered through the wrong channels. The system was rotten at multiple levels. She needed a masterstroke. Something that would make denial impossible and exposure inevitable. Her eyes scanned the list of names in the dossier. Vargas, the aggressor. Mendes, the complicit supervisor. Ramos, the architect of impunity. And now the shadow of an international money laundering scheme. The indignation of the humiliated market vendor, her mother, was the fuel that propelled her. But Captain Sophia was not driven solely by anger. She was guided by the relentless logic of military strategy. She needed a stage, a moment when all the pieces would fall into place and the truth would spectacularly come to light. An anonymous tip would not be enough. A direct confrontation with the corrupt could be too dangerous and the evidence suppressed. Sophia tapped her fingertips on the desk, a soft, thoughtful rhythm. The solution had to be public and irrevocable, an operation that would not only arrest those involved, but also expose the mechanism behind everything. She thought of the press, external oversight bodies, political figures of proven integrity. The idea began to germinate in her mind. A strategic, controlled leak to a reliable media source, accompanied by a sting operation that would catch those involved in an undeniable act of corruption. The shock would be so great that the system wouldn't have time to close ranks again. A sting, Sophia whispered, the word echoing in the office. They need to be caught red-handed, in the act, and everything filmed and documented. That, combined with the dossier, will be the bomb that implodes this network. Night advanced and Captain Sophia felt no fatigue. Adrenaline coursed through her veins. The sound of the wind outside, softly whistling against the window, seemed to carry the promise of an imminent storm. She knew the evidence collection phase was almost complete. The next step would be execution, and for that, she would need an elite team, loyal and untouchable. With one last look at the screen, where the names of the corrupt gleamed coldly, Sophia turned off the monitor. The office plunged into darkness, but the captain's mind was clearer than ever. The hunt was about to turn into an ambush. The darkness engulfing the office did not hinder the clarity in Sophia's mind. The hunt was about to turn into an ambush, and every detail needed to be meticulously calculated. She could not fail. The sound of the wind outside, softly whistling against the window, seemed to carry the promise of an imminent storm. Captain Sophia spent the following hours immersed in digital city maps, cross-referencing information about commercial establishments linked to urban security littered, and Vargas's patrol patterns. The goal was to find the point of vulnerability, the perfect place and time to strike. The server's discreet hum was the only melody accompanying her thoughts. She needed a team, not just loyal men and women, but with unquestionable integrity, capable of operating in the shadows and resisting any pressure. In an encrypted folder, Sophia reviewed the profiles of her best field agents, those who had proven their courage and discretion in highly sensitive missions. The names of Captain Gabriel and Lieutenant Anna shone on the screen. They were the backbone she needed for the operation. The strategy began to unfold on her screen, a complex diagram of surveillance, infiltration, and capture. The first step would be to identify a merchant who was under heavy pressure from the city patrol, someone who already paid the protection fee and was desperate enough to cooperate. Elias would be crucial in this, using his network of informants. The phone emitted a soft beep. It was Elias. "Captain, we have something. Mr. Almeida, the owner of the convenience store chain, is under intense pressure to regularize a series of licenses. He has a meeting scheduled with Vargas and Sergeant Mendez tomorrow night in a warehouse behind one of his convenience stores. Apparently, it's to discuss the terms of a new agreement." Our environmental listening agents in Almeida's office picked up the conversation. A cold smile spread across Sophia's lips. The piece fit perfectly. A meeting in a discreet, but not entirely isolated, location, with two of the main targets. "Excellent, Elias. This is gold. Is Mr. Almeida willing to cooperate?" "He's terrified, Captain. But when he learned you were involved and that justice would be served, he agreed to help. He wants to record the conversation and the payment." "Perfect. Prepare him. I want micro cameras and embedded microphones. Every word, every gesture, every note exchanged must be recorded, and I want a support team ready to act at the exact moment." Sophia felt adrenaline surge. The stage was set. Captain Sophia began to detail the operation. Gabriel and Anna would lead the field teams, positioning themselves strategically around the warehouse. High-tech, nearly inaudible drones would be used for aerial monitoring, ensuring a complete view of the perimeter. An audio and video recording system would be set up remotely, capturing the scene from different angles. The sound of her fingers clicking on the keyboard was fast and firm, typing orders and security protocols. The most delicate part would be public exposure. Sophia knew that mere arrest would not be enough to dismantle the network from top to bottom. She needed a catalyst. She thought of an investigative journalist, Laura Martins, known for her courage and network of contacts. Laura had uncovered several corruption scandals in the past, always with irrefutable evidence. Sophia picked up the phone again, dialing a secure number. The ringing lingered, and with each second, Sophia's heart beat a little faster. A female voice answered, hoarse but alert. "Laura Martins." "Laura, this is Captain Sophia. I have a story for you. A story that will shake the foundations of this city, but I need your complete discretion and trust." There was a silence on the other end of the line, heavy and expectant. Then Laura's voice, now clearer, responded, "I'm listening, Captain." Sophia explained the premise, the extortion scheme, the shell company, the names of Vargas, Mendez, and Ramos, and the imminent sting operation. She didn't reveal all the details of the dossier, but provided enough information for Laura to understand the magnitude of the situation. "I want you to be ready to receive exclusive material with irrefutable evidence the moment the operation is concluded." The story needs to break within hours, so there's no time to suppress the case. Captain, this is huge, but I need guarantees, and I need to see the evidence before publishing anything. Laura's voice was firm, professional. The evidence will be in your hands, Laura, and the guarantee is my word, and the certainty that justice will be served. I trust you to expose the truth without mincing words. Sophia knew she was risking a lot, but it was a calculated risk. Laura's credibility was the key to the irreversibility of the exposé. A heavy sigh echoed on the line. All right, Captain. Keep me informed about the timing. I'll be ready. Sophia hung up, the soft click of the device marking a new chapter in her battle. The night was still young, but dawn would bring the opportunity to unmask corruption. The plan was complete. Now it was time to act. The sound of the wind outside, once a whisper, now seemed a distant roar, foreshadowing the approaching storm. Captain Sophia felt a pang of anxiety, but determination outweighed any fear. The game had begun, and she was playing to win. Captain Sophia felt the anticipation as a knot in her stomach, but her posture was steel. Dawn revealed a grey, heavy sky, and the wind that once whistled now howled outside, rattling the windows of her makeshift command center. The room was dark, lit only by the cold glow of monitors, where real-time images from drones and hidden cameras transmitted the scene around Mr. Almeida's warehouse. The constant hum of the equipment was the only sound filling the tense silence. Team status, Gabriel. Sophia's voice cut through the air, crisp and controlled. The answer came almost immediately, a whisper through the earpiece. Team Alpha positioned on the neighboring building's roof, Captain. Clear view of the main entrance and back. Team Beta on the side street, disguised. Anna is with Mr. Almeida, preparing him. Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on one of the screens, showing the back of Almeida's convenience store. A delivery van was parked, its rear door slightly ajar, revealing the dark interior of the warehouse. It was the agreed location. Inside, Mr. Almeida trembled. Sweat dripped down his forehead despite the air conditioning. Anna, with her usual calm, adjusted the small microphone clipped to his shirt lapel and the micro camera disguised as a button. Breathe deeply, Mr. Almeida. Remember what we rehearsed. Stay calm. Speak clearly. We'll be listening to every word, seeing every movement. The merchant swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the warehouse door. The creak of the metal door, announcing the arrival of Vargas and Mendez, made his heart leap in his chest. In the command room, Sophia heard the muffled sound of heavy footsteps. "They're here," she murmured, adrenaline coursing. Vargas entered first, his arrogant gaze sweeping the warehouse. Mendez followed him, a cynical smile on his lips. The smell of dust and old merchandise hung in the air. "Almeida, Almeida," Vargas said, his voice drawn out. "Always so punctual. Did you bring what we agreed upon?" Mr. Almeida, his voice slightly choked, replied, "Yes, Sergeant, as you requested. But the fees are too high. My stores can barely operate with these charges." A dry laugh escaped Mendez. "High? Almeida, are you complaining? Think of it as an investment in your security. No one wants to see their products damaged, or worse, their stores invaded, right?" The veiled threat was clear. Sophia clenched her fists but remained calm, her eyes scanning the screens. Almeida's camera captured the faces of the two men, greed evident in their eyes. Vargas extended his hand. "Enough small talk. The money." With trembling hands, Almeida took a canvas bag from under the counter and placed it on a cardboard box. The muffled sound of banknotes spreading was amplified by the microphone. "All this?" Vargas asked, a glint of satisfaction on his face as he opened the bag and ran his fingers through the bills. "It's short. It's not the full amount of the new agreement." "It's the most I could get, Sergeant," Almeida pleaded, his voice almost a whimper. Mendez stepped forward, his shadow covering Almeida. You know what happens to those who don't honor agreements, don't you, Almeida? Perhaps a small, accidental fire in one of your stores will serve to refresh your memory. Sophia's rage simmered, but she knew she had to wait for the exact moment. No, please, Almeida exclaimed. I can give you the rest next week, I swear. Vargas smiled, a cruel smile. There is no next week, Almeida. The agreement is today, or there's no protection. And without protection, well, the city is a dangerous place. He took the bag of money and handed it to Mendez. Take it. He'll learn to find the rest. In the command room, Sophia saw Mendez put the money in a backpack. Now, Captain, she ordered, her voice firm and powerful. Gabriel, Anna, move in. Surround the warehouse. No one gets out. The sound of sirens, still distant, began to tear through the air. In the warehouse, Vargas and Mendez exchanged glances, surprise and panic seizing their faces. What is this? Vargas growled, trying to move towards the door. But it was too late. The warehouse door burst open with a crash, revealing Gabriel and his team, weapons drawn. At the same time, Anna and her team emerged from the back, blocking the rear exit. Hands up, military police! You are under arrest for extortion and corruption! Gabriel's voice echoed in the warehouse. Vargas tried one last move, a sudden reach for his waist, but Gabriel was faster, immobilizing him with a precise strike. Mendez, petrified, dropped the backpack with the money, which fell to the floor with a dull thud. In the command room, Sophia watched the scene with cold satisfaction. The images showed Vargas and Mendez handcuffed, the money scattered on the floor, and Mr. Almeida stumbling but safe. The sound of sirens intensified, now very close, and blue and red lights began to flash on the screens. Excellent work, team, Sophia said, the tension finally dissipating from her shoulders. Anna, make sure Mr. Almeida is safe and that all recordings are immediately transferred and encrypted. Gabriel, ensure Vargas and Mendez are taken to a secure facility without external contact. The click of Sophia's phone filled the brief silence. It was Laura Martins. Captain, I'm seeing the breaking news. A massive operation at Mr. Almeida's convenience store. Is this it? Laura's voice was filled with excitement. Yes, Laura, this is it, Sophia replied, a slight smile appearing on her lips. The evidence is on its way to your encrypted email. Videos, audio, testimonies, everything. I want this story to explode across every headline before dawn. Consider it done, Captain. This is the bomb that will shake the city, Laura promised, her voice full of determination. Sophia hung up, the soft sound of the device marking the end of one phase and the beginning of another. The wind outside, which had previously howled, now seemed to sing a song of victory. Vargas and Mendez were just the beginning. The real target, Inspector Ramos, and the corruption network he orchestrated was still lurking. But with the irrefutable evidence and the press as an ally, Sophia knew the corrupt system was about to collapse. The storm had arrived, and she was ready to sweep everything away. The soft click of Sophia's phone had barely ceased when Laura Martin's world exploded in digital colors. The encrypted email, promised by the captain, landed in her inbox, a portal to the raw truth. Laura didn't waste a second. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, opening the attachments, and what unfolded before her eyes made her hold her breath. Clear videos of the extortion, audio where Mendez's veiled threats and Vargas's arrogance were undeniable, and documents detailing the shadowy transactions of the shell company. Almeida's voice, trembling but firm, resonated through Laura's headphones, a poignant testimony to the oppression. Adrenaline pumped hard through Laura's veins. The smell of cold coffee and old paper in the empty newsroom seemed to intensify the gravity of the moment. She dialed her editor's number, her voice laden with urgency. It's the story of the decade, Chief, a bombshell. I have everything. At first, the editor, accustomed to empty promises, expressed skepticism, But as Laura described the magnitude of the evidence, the irrefutability of the facts, his tone changed. Incredulity gave way to excitement. "Publish everything, Laura. Don't hold anything back. I want this on the streets and online before the sun rises." Within hours, the city awoke to the impact of a media thunderclap. Bold headlines screamed from news portals, television screens, and radios. Corruption scandal rocks city, law enforcement officials caught red-handed in extortion. The images of Vargas and Mendez, handcuffed, their faces contorted in shock and panic, were replicated across every news feed. The sound of newscasters echoed through homes, narrating the sordid details of the protection and extortion scheme. Popular outrage exploded like a wave. Social media boiled with comments, demanding justice, remembering the humiliated market vendor, and connecting the dots. Captain Sophia's name, though not yet publicly linked to the operation, began to be whispered in the corridors of power as the force behind the turnaround. Far from the public buzz, in his luxurious apartment overlooking the city, Inspector Ramos was jolted from his sleep by the shrill ring of the phone. The voice on the other end of the line was laden with panic, almost unintelligible. "Inspector, Vargas and Mendez. They were caught, red-handed. The press is already reporting everything." Ramos felt a chilling cold run down his spine. He tried to call Vargas, to call Mendez, but only reached voicemail. A shiver settled in his stomach as he turned on the television, and the images of his handcuffed men filled the screen. His blood ran cold. The captain. She had made good on her threat. That contained smile of hers, the unsettling calm. It was all part of a plan. The sound of his own breathing became heavy, ragged. He needed to act, and fast. He began making calls, his voice low and urgent, trying to contain the leak, trying to understand the extent of the damage. But the storm had already set in. In the makeshift command center, Sophia watched the news spread with cold satisfaction. The screen showed the explosive repercussion, popular outrage growing by the minute. A grim smile played on her lips. The first domino had fallen, and the sound of its fall resonated throughout the city. She knew Ramos would be in a panic, desperately trying to protect his network, but panic leads to mistakes. She needed to be one step ahead. Gabriel entered the room, his face serious. "Captain, Vargas and Mendez have been interrogated. They tried to call Ramos repeatedly. We've confirmed the direct connection. The recordings are secure and have been sent to the encrypted central archive, as ordered." Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on a city map, dotted with points of interest. "Excellent work, Gabriel. Keep them isolated. No one, absolutely no one, should have contact with them, and prepare a detailed report of all Vargas and Mendez's assets and properties. We need every detail to track the money flow." She picked up a pen and began circling some points on the map. The pressure on Ramos will increase exponentially now. He can't afford to stay silent for long. He'll make a move, and when he does, we'll be waiting. Captain Sophia reviewed the dossiers, looking for more connections, for vulnerabilities in the inspector's armor. Her mother, the humiliated market vendor, was the spark that ignited this battle. Now, the captain would be the fire that would consume corruption. She began sketching a plan for the next phase, involving the collection of more testimonies from victims who had been silenced by fear and the exposure of more of Ramos's illicit assets, those he thought were well hidden. The storm was just beginning to gather strength, and Sophia was determined to sweep away every trace of filth. The smell of fresh coffee filled a small room, where Almeida, still pale and with trembling hands, narrated his story. Every word that left his mouth, every detail of the extortion, was meticulously recorded and transcribed by an attentive legal assistant. His voice, once a whisper of fear, now gained a tone of liberation, a palpable relief at finally being able to speak. The convenience store's security cameras, the negotiation audio, Mendez's threats, everything fit perfectly with Almeida's testimony, forming an impregnable wall of evidence. Far away, Inspector Ramos felt the noose tightening. The phone in his hand vibrated incessantly with calls from unknown numbers and refusals from his usual contacts. The irritating sound of the device was a constant reminder of his growing isolation. With each new headline that appeared on his television showing popular outrage and the images of Vargas and Mendez, the fury in his chest mingled with a chilling fear. He tried to call his lawyers, but most dodged him, citing conflicts of interest or packed schedules. The web of protection he had so carefully woven began to unravel, thread by thread. "Inspector, we need to talk." A harsh, familiar voice sounded from the intercom, making Ramos jump. It was Colonel Silva, his superior, whose normally calm voice now carried a note of urgency and disapproval. "Come up to my office, now." Ramos felt a knot in his throat. He knew the meeting wouldn't be about the weather. As he stood, the sound of his own footsteps on the soft carpet seemed to echo in his mind, heavy and final. Meanwhile, Sofia reviewed Gabriel's reports. The list of Vargas and Mendez's assets was extensive, revealing a lifestyle far beyond their salaries. Luxury cars, properties in upscale neighborhoods, bank accounts filled under straw names. Each item was a piece of the puzzle, a money trail that led directly to the source of the scheme. "Gabriel, I need you and your team to start following these trails," Sofia instructed, pointing to a series of suspicious transactions on a spreadsheet. "I want every account, every property, every connection thoroughly investigated. We need irrefutable proof of Ramos's involvement." "Yes, Captain," Gabriel replied, his voice firm. "We're already mobilizing the financial intelligence team. It will be meticulous work, but we'll find the links." Sofia nodded, her eyes fixed on the city map, now dotted with more markings. The sound of the rain outside, softly beating against the window, seemed to wash the city, purifying it of the filth she was determined to eradicate. "Furthermore," Sofia continued, her voice low and strategic, "contact Laura Martins. Ask her to launch a series of investigative reports on the illicit enrichment of high-ranking officials, without mentioning names for now. Let the seed of doubt be planted. I want Ramos to feel the pressure of public opinion turning against him, even before he's officially accused." Sofia's strategy was clear. Isolate Ramos, sever his connections, and finally bring him down with a tsunami of evidence and public pressure. She knew he would try to react, perhaps even threaten, but every move he made would be monitored. Back in his apartment, Ramos, after the tense meeting with Colonel Silva, felt cornered. The colonel had been relentless, demanding explanations, mentioning an imminent internal investigation. The sound of an ambulance siren passing on the street below seemed like a lament, an omen. He picked up the phone again, dialing a number he hoped he'd never have to use. "I need a favor, a big favor," he whispered into the phone, his voice hoarse with desperation. "I need someone to convince Mr. Almeida to recant, and fast." In the command room, Sofia received the news almost instantly. The listening system she had discreetly installed on key lines of Ramos's network intercepted the call. A cold smile appeared on her lips. He had bitten the bait. "Gabriel, Anna," she ordered, her voice resonating with authority, "reinforce Mr. Almeida's security immediately, and prepare a team to intercept anyone who tries to approach him. Ramos has just made a fatal mistake." The sound of the printer working incessantly in the next room, spitting out reports and transcripts, was the soundtrack of justice in motion. The storm was not just gathering strength, it was about to reach its peak. The ground beneath Ramos's feet was about to give way, and Captain Sofia ensured every crack would be exploited. No sooner had the inspector's words left his mouth than Sofia's team was already in motion. Security around Almeida was reinforced within minutes. Two undercover agents with years of experience in field operations strategically positioned themselves around the safe apartment where Almeida was staying. The smell of fresh bread from the neighboring bakery barely disguised the tension in the air. It didn't take long. A dark car with tinted windows stopped a few blocks away. Two men, dressed in civilian clothes, but with a posture that betrayed military training, got out and began to approach the building. Their steps were calculated, their gazes sweeping the surroundings with professional coldness. They didn't know they were being watched. When one of the men tried to unlock the building door with a master key, the sound of metal against the lock was the signal. In a coordinated and silent movement, Sophia's agents intercepted the duo. There were no shouts, just a brief and contained struggle. The muffled sound of a body hitting the ground, followed by the click of handcuffs, was the only evidence of the swift action. Ramos's men were neutralized and taken to a secure location for interrogation, their attempt to silence Almeida thwarted before it even began. In the command room, Sophia received the news with a nod. Excellent. Ramos is predictable. He attacks when he feels cornered. She turned to the screens showing Laura Martin's new reports. The headlines, though still cautious, already hinted at a web of corruption that extended far beyond Vargas and Mendez. Investigation points to larger scheme in the army, screamed the headlines, accompanied by complex graphics detailing the illicit enrichment of unidentified officials. Sophia's strategy was working. Public opinion, already simmering, began to direct its indignation towards the highest levels of the hierarchy. Ramos's phone began to ring incessantly. It was no longer his usual contacts, but rather the lawyers of the men he had sent to silence Almeida, demanding explanations. The voice of one of them, laden with fury, echoed through the device. "Inspector, your men were caught, trying to break into an apartment. This is a disaster." Ramos threw the phone against the wall, a dry crack filling the silence of his luxurious apartment. Fear turned into rage. Captain Sophia was playing a dangerous game, and he was losing. He paced back and forth, the soft carpet beneath his feet, unable to muffle the heavy sound of his own breathing. He needed a plan, and fast. With each passing minute, the noose tightened. He knew the men who were caught wouldn't last long under interrogation. They would talk, and when they talked, all his connections, all his secrets, would come to light. Meanwhile, Gabriel presented Sophia with a new report. "Captain, the financial intelligence team found a series of large money transfers to offshore accounts, all linked to a shell company registered in the name of a distant cousin of Ramos. The amounts are exorbitant, far above what he could justify with his salary, and there are records of high-value property purchases in the name of that same company." Gabriel pointed to a property map on one of the screens. Here, here, and here. All in upscale neighborhoods, all acquired within the last 5 years. The sound of the printer, working tirelessly in the next room, seemed like a countdown for Ramos. Sophia analyzed the data, a determined gleam in her eyes. "Excellent work, Gabriel. This is irrefutable. Now we have the financial evidence that directly links Ramos to the scheme. The men who tried to silence Almeida are the icing on the cake." She picked up a pen and circled Ramos's name on the report. "It's time to close the net. Prepare search and seizure warrants for all these properties and for Ramos's apartment, and notify Colonel Silva. I want him aware of every step." The sound of the rain outside, which had ceased, gave way to a heavy, almost oppressive silence. The city was about to witness the culmination of a relentless hunt. Sophia knew that Ramos, cornered, might try one last desperate move, but she was ready. The captain had promised justice to her mother, and the promise would be fulfilled. The ground beneath Ramos's feet was not just giving way, it was about to collapse completely. The ground beneath Ramos's feet was not just giving way, it was about to collapse completely. The phone, thrown against the wall, lay in pieces, a dry crack still echoing in the heavy silence of his apartment. The fury in his chest simmered, mixed with a visceral fear. Captain Sophia had anticipated his every move, turning his desperate attempt to silence Almeida into yet another piece of evidence against him. In the interrogation room, Ramos's two men, once so confident, crumbled under pressure. The muffled sound of their voices, recorded and transmitted to Sophia's command room, revealed the extent of the extortion network. Details about payments, meeting locations, veiled threats, and Ramos's direct orders to resolve problems with merchants. One of the men, a former military man with a history of gambling debts, wept openly, his voice choked with despair, pleading for clemency in exchange for more information. He gave up names, dates, and locations of others involved, drawing a complex map of complicity that extended across various spheres. "They're telling everything, Captain," Gabriel informed, his voice serious, as the testimonies were transcribed in real time. They confirmed Ramos's orders to intimidate Almeida and revealed the existence of a safe in one of the Shell properties, where he keeps documents and a portion of the cash. Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the floor plan of the mentioned property. The determined gleam in her eyes was intense. "Excellent. This is exactly what we needed to seal the case. Prepare search and seizure warrants for the safe and for Ramos's apartment immediately. I want the financial intelligence team ready to analyze every document and every cent we find." The constant sound of the printer spitting out reports and transcripts seemed like a hymn to justice in progress. With each new page, Ramos's web unraveled a little more. Meanwhile, Colonel Silva, in his office, read the preliminary report sent by Sophia. The click of the mouse in his hand was the only sound in his office, heavy and somber. The evidence was overwhelming, the wiretaps, the testimonies, the financial proofs, and now the frustrated attempt to silence a witness. A wave of disgust and shame washed over the colonel's face. The extent of the corruption under his command was a painful blow. The phone on his desk rang, a discreet ring that made him jump. It was Sophia. "Colonel, the warrants are ready. The search and seizure operation will begin in less than an hour. I want you to be aware that Ramos is a dangerous and cornered man. He might try to react." "Understood, Captain." Colonel Silva's voice was firmer now, hesitation replaced by cold resolve. "I will mobilize a support team to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Justice will be served, whatever the cost." Back in his apartment, Ramos, his mind in tatters, realized that time had run out. The silence of the place was suffocating, broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He approached one of the walls, which concealed a small secret compartment. With trembling hands, he opened it, revealing a fake passport and a wad of cash. His plan was to flee, to disappear. But as he picked up the items, a small device attached to the inside of the compartment door fell to the floor, an almost unnoticeable click. It was a tracker. A chill ran down his spine. Sophia had thought of everything. He was being monitored, every move, every breath. The distant sound of sirens, which once seemed like an unrelated lament, now approached, transforming into a chorus of alarms. They were coming for him. Rage turned into pure despair. There was nowhere to run, no way to escape. He was trapped. The sound of sirens intensified, filling the city air, now no longer a premonition, but a certainty. The storm was not just gathering strength, it had arrived, and its center was Ramos's apartment. The main door of his building creaked, and the sound of firm, coordinated footsteps ascended the stairs. Justice, relentless and unshakable, finally knocked on his door. The sound of sirens intensified, filling the city air, now no longer a premonition, but a certainty. The storm was not just gathering strength, it had arrived, and its center was Ramos's apartment. The main door of his building creaked, and the sound of firm, coordinated footsteps ascended the stairs. Justice, relentless and unshakable, finally knocked on his door. A deafening crash made Ramos's apartment door give way, splinters of wood flying down the hallway. The SWAT team, led by a grim-faced sergeant, stormed the apartment in a matter of seconds. Ramos, pale, stood in the middle of the room, his hands raised in a pathetic gesture of surrender, the fake passport and wad of cash fallen on the carpet. His eyes, once full of arrogance, now reflected an icy terror. The click of handcuffs around his wrists was a dry, definitive sound, a final marker for his freedom. Captain Sophia entered immediately afterward, her gaze sweeping the apartment with calculated coldness. She showed no triumph, only an unshakable seriousness. Behind her, Colonel Silver observed the scene, his face marked by a mixture of relief and deep disappointment. The silence, which had once been agony for Ramos, was now a bitter victory for Sophia. "Captain, we found the safe," Gabriel informed, pointing to a false wall behind a bookshelf. The sound of an electric drill piercing metal filled the room as the search team worked with surgical precision. In a few minutes, the steel door of the safe opened with a metallic creak. Inside, stacks of cash, bank documents, property deeds, and a series of USB drives and hard drives revealed the extent of the corruption network. The smell of old paper and new money hung in the air. Sophia approached, picking up one of the USB drives. "Take everything to the forensic lab. I want every byte of information analyzed, and every document, every cent, catalogued." She handed the device to one of the agents, her fingers brushing the cold plastic. With each item removed from the safe, Ramos's power structure crumbled a little more, turning to dust. As Ramos was escorted out of the apartment, the sound of the crowd gathering outside, drawn by the sirens and police activity, began to grow. Curious voices, murmurs of surprise and indignation mingled, echoing through the building. The news of his arrest would spread like wildfire. As he passed Sophia, Ramos attempted one last defiant look, but his eyes wavered under the captain's intense gaze. Colonel Silver approached Sophia. "Captain, you've done an impeccable job. Justice has prevailed." The colonel's voice was laden with sincere gratitude, but also with deep sadness for the stain on the institution's reputation. Sophia merely nodded, her eyes fixed on the void Ramos had left. The distant sound of sirens faded with the police car, carrying Ramos to an uncertain but certainly grim future. She could almost feel the market sun's heat on her mother's skin, the humiliation, the threats, the image of the market vendor with calloused hands but an unbreakable spirit arose in her mind. The promise was fulfilled. However, the captain knew that Ramos's arrest was only one part of the battle. The web of corruption he helped weave was vast and complex, and many others still needed to be held accountable. The sound of press cameras already gathered at the building's entrance announced that the story was just beginning to be told. The city, now on alert, awaited the next chapters of this saga of justice and redemption. Sophia felt a slight tremor in the ground beneath her feet, not of collapse, but of a new beginning. The tremor Sophia felt beneath her feet was not of collapse, but of a new beginning, a prelude to the storm that was still brewing. The press buzz outside grew, the sound of camera shutters firing incessantly, capturing the spectacle of justice in action. In Ramos's apartment, the forensic team was already working with fervor. The click of keyboards and the hum of computers filling the air. Every USB drive, every hard drive, every sheet of paper was methodically scanned, copied, and analyzed. Gabriel, with a stack of documents in hand, approached Sophia. "Captain, the first preliminary reports are explosive. Ramos wasn't just a big fish, he was the head of a hydra. The documents point to an extortion network that extends far beyond what we imagined. It involves inflated contracts with the city hall, money laundering through shell companies, and even the buying of influence in public tenders." Colonel Silver, listening to the conversation, felt a weight in his chest. The sound of his own sigh was almost unnoticeable, but laden with deep shame. "This is far worse than I could have imagined," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "The extent of this rot. It reaches the roots of our institution." Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on a connection map Gabriel was projecting onto a portable screen. Red and blue lines intertwined, linking names, companies, and bank accounts. The hum of the projector was the only sound breaking the tension in the room. "That's exactly why we can't stop here, Colonel. Ramos was a key piece, yes, but not the only one. There are others involved, and they are even more powerful. We need to follow each of these leads, dismantle every link in this chain." The financial intelligence team, led by a young and brilliant analyst named Clara, worked tirelessly. The constant sound of the mouse and keyboard, combined with the concentrated murmur of voices, created a symphony of discovery. "Captain," Clara called, her voice vibrant with excitement, "we found significant transfers to offshore accounts. The names associated with these accounts are high-ranking figures. One of them is a city councilman, and another is a state representative." A heavy silence fell over the apartment, broken only by the click of press cameras outside. The revelation hit everyone like an electric shock. The scope of corruption had just expanded exponentially. "Prepare detailed reports for each of these names," Sophia ordered, her voice firm and unshakable. "We need irrefutable evidence before any move. And maintain maximum secrecy. The less they know we're closing in, the better." Colonel Silver straightened his shoulders, shame transforming into steely determination. "Captain, I will mobilize all necessary resources. This is a matter of honor for our institution. I will not allow this stain to remain." The sound of his hand decisively hitting the table resonated, a silent oath. As night advanced, Ramos's apartment transformed into an operations center. The smell of strong coffee hung in the air, mixing with the aroma of paper and ink. Sophia walked among the workstations, observing the progress, answering questions, her mind already charting the next steps. She knew that the battle against corruption was a marathon, not a sprint. Ramos's arrest was the first major victory, but the war was far from over. She stopped in front of the window, observing the city lights. The crowd below had diminished, but camera flashes could still be seen occasionally. The distant sound of a news helicopter circling overhead confirmed that Ramos's story was already headline news. The city was awake, and the truth was coming to light. An almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Her mother, the humble market vendor, had been the catalyst for it all. The initial fury had transformed into a driving force for justice. Sophia picked up her phone and dialed. The sound of her mother's voice, calm and serene, on the other end of the line brought momentary relief. "Mother, we did it. Ramos has been arrested." A sigh of relief echoed from the other side, followed by a soft cry. "I knew it, my daughter. I always knew you would bring justice." The conversation was short, but the connection was deep. Sophia hung up, feeling the warmth of maternal affection. The promise was not only fulfilled, but was expanding, becoming something much larger. The sound of the printer, which continued to churn out page after page of evidence, was the rhythm of a new era. The cleanup was just beginning. Captain Sophia, with her team, was ready to hunt the Hydra to its last head. The sharp whistle of a kettle in the small kitchen space where someone was preparing more coffee seemed like a call to the next phase. The sharp whistle of the kettle silenced, replaced by the constant hum of servers and the incessant click of keyboards, which now dictated the rhythm of that early morning in Ramos's apartment. The next phase was already in full swing. A complex choreography of investigation and strategy unfolding under Captain Sophia's watchful eye. The team, driven by adrenaline and the magnitude of the discoveries, worked tirelessly. Gabriel, with a renewed expression of seriousness, presented a new report to Sophia. Captain, the financial intelligence team has confirmed the links. The names Clara identified, the city councilman and the state representative, are not just beneficiaries, they are architects. The money flows show that Ramos was a key piece, yes, but he operated under their directives, managing the extortion and money laundering network at an operational level. The dry sound of pages turning, each revealing another link in the chain of corruption. Clara, the young analyst, added, her voice full of conviction, "We found encrypted emails and text messages detailing secret meetings, direct orders to Ramos, and a protection scheme that involved bribes to inspectors and even some members of the judiciary. They had an alert system for any investigation. Ramos was just the tip of the iceberg that emerged, Captain." Colonel Silva, who had remained silent, absorbing every word, slapped his hand on the table with a muffled but firm sound. "This is an unprecedented scandal. We need to act quickly and precisely. Public trust in our institution is already shaken. We cannot fail now." Sophia nodded, her eyes scanning the projections on the portable screen. The connection map now stretched across the entire wall, an intricate web of names, dates, and values. The hum of the projector seemed like a mantra, each moment revealing new layers of rot. "Colonel, prepare search and seizure warrants for the offices and residences of these individuals. I want a SWAT team ready to act at dawn. We need to catch them by surprise before they have time to destroy more evidence." Her voice was a command, a steel wire cutting through the air. She turned to Gabriel and Clara. "Keep scouring every bite of information. Look for any mention of others involved, of other schemes. This is not just an arrest operation, it's a cleanup operation. We need to pull this weed out by the roots." As night gave way to the first rays of sun, a new buzz began to emerge outside. No longer just the press, but ordinary citizens, drawn by the news already circulating on radios and social media. The sound of voices grew, some indignant, others hopeful. The city was waking up to a new reality. Sophia picked up her phone again. This time, she dialed her mother. "Mother, the others will be caught too. Justice won't stop with Ramos." Her mother's voice, now without tears but with renewed strength, replied, "I knew it, my daughter. I knew you would do more than just arrest one man. You would change everything. I am proud of you, Sophia, very proud." The sound of a deep sigh of relief, of peace, filled the line. Sophia felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of duty fulfilled that went beyond professional satisfaction. It was the validation of a promise, of a fury transformed into unshakable strength. As she hung up, she turned to the window. The rising sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, illuminating the city that was preparing for a day that would be marked in its history. Camera flashes still flickered below, but now they were accompanied by sparse applause and shouts of "Justice!" Colonel Silva approached, his expression hardened by determination. "Captain, the teams are ready. The warrants have been issued." Sophia nodded, a steely glint in her eyes. "Then, let's go. The city waits. Justice cannot wait." The sound of the captain's and her team's firm footsteps echoed down the corridor of Ramos's apartment, now a symbol of the fall of one era and the dawn of another. The news helicopter, still circling overhead, captured the images of that new day. The cleanup was just beginning, and Captain Sophia, the woman who dared to challenge the untouchable, was ready to lead the final battle against the Hydra, ensuring that the power of justice, when championed by a strong woman, was truly unshakable.